In order for us to continue with an application that has been brought by the state in terms of section 50, subsection 60, it was argued extensively. We now find ourselves where the state is supposed to reply to the arguments that were presented. However, before I give the state a chance to proceed, as proceed to be proceed.
May I please support? Your Worship, I'm briefly going to make reference to Exhibit A. Your Worship will recall that's the statement handed up by the state in support of the application in terms of section 50 sub 6. Your Worship, paragraph 6 is what it is. Paragraph 7, there's reference made to section 60 sub 11. My submission there to is simply the following. Section 60 sub 11 deals only with the issue of a Schedule 5 or a Schedule 6. There's nothing more and nothing less to it. It only refers to those schedules. Your Worship, if we then move on to paragraph 8, specifically, paragraph 8 deals with the issue of home affairs that we've dealt with. We've handed up as Exhibit B the judgment of the High Court in this matter. Your Worship, then we deal with section of paragraph. Then we deal with the issue in paragraph 9, Your Worship, where it refers to the addresses of the first applicant, Shepherd Bushiri, that must be investigated. And there's a statement made very vague and very bold about the fact that he doesn't stay there. Then reference is made to the addresses of Landiwe and Tlokwani that was visited. Again, I've made submissions to Your Worship about the absence of substantive facts to justify that. And then they further state that those addresses needs to be supplied, it needs to be verified. And then they also make reference to the issue of the for sale sign. Again, Your Worship, we want to emphasize that we went and we investigated the particular house, and with the greatest of respect, there is not a single for sale sign up in front of this house. And I would have expected the state, if that was their case, the investigating officer, that they would have provided this honourable court with a photograph. We live in a modern era. That photograph could have been taken with a cellular phone. Then there's a mention made in paragraph 10, Your Worship, about the known family ties and properties that was listed in the previous application that must be investigated. I've made my submissions to Your Worship in that regard. They have not only investigated this case for almost 2 years, the same investigating team and prosecutors also involved in that case. And I find it surprising where they didn't oppose bail under those circumstances, with those facts in mind, that they now suddenly raise this as an issue. They then make mention, Your Worship, strangely enough, of a fear that exists that the accused, if released on bail, may interfere and undermine the justice system. Now, Your Worship is as well as aware as I am that when you make these kinds of submissions, such submissions must be substantiated with facts. You can't just make a vague and bold submission in that particular regard. Your Worship, I then, with reference to the affidavit itself, wish to make the following submissions. The state elected to proceed by way of an affidavit. The law is quite clear. When you bring an application and you elect to proceed by way of affidavit, that is the case that you argue. You cannot argue outside of the papers that's before court. You can't now bring in further submissions from the side. The state had time to make this decision or elect to go by way of affidavit. They had time to consider the reasons they wish to refer to this court, and that they've done. So the state must please desist from making submissions to this honourable court that does not fall within the realm of what is contained in their affidavit. The case law in this regard, I submit, Your Worship, is plain and it's strike law. Your Worship, I then wish to briefly to hand up the following to the honourable court. Your Worship would recall on the last occasion we made an offer to the state and to the investigating team to approach us, and we will provide them with whatever evidence is necessary to enable them to deal with the issues that they raised in their affidavit. I beg to hand up to the Honourable Court, and one for my learned friend. I know she's in possession of it, but just for the record, a complete trail of emails between my attorney, Mr. Matopo, and Colonel Maritz of the Hawks. In this, and I'm not going to go through it for time reasons, Your Worship. What we've done, and I will basically summarize it. So on Wednesday evening, 5:15, Wednesday afternoon, 5:15, after the court adjourned, we provided them, we dealt with the issue of the Bushiri's minor children. There seems to be some suggestion, we heard some whispers that that's a suggestion that we must let the court pertaining to the minor children, Your Worship. And we made it patently clear that Colonel Maritz has always been involved with the issue of the minor children. He knows that the children are in Malawi, and the children travels up and down to South Africa since the applicants' their passport has been detained with him. He's been intimately involved with Mr. Nkwashu in dealing with that. It is patently clear, Your Worship, that when the children are with them, which they still were at the time of the arrest, and they are still in South Africa, that they are a family unit, that they live together as a family. Your Worship, we have canvassed this issue more fully in the ultimate bail affidavit that we will hand up to the Honourable Court. The next issue, Your Worship, will see on page 1, we deal with the address of Ms. Ntlokwani. We have already, in the affidavits that we handed up specifically for purposes of dealing with the issues raised in the state's affidavit, dealt with the following. We said there what the specific addresses is, because the investigating team said they were not sure of the addresses as they were contained in the affidavit, so we spelled it out for the chapter and verse. That is dealt with in paragraph 2 on the first page, Your Worship. We also went one step further. In paragraph 4, we referred them to the previous address where the applicant lived. The bank accounts that's under preservation, they said they will provide full details. Your Worship, I need to apologize to the court. I made an error when I said bank accounts. I was meant to say that one of the assets, that's the aeroplane, that is under preservation. And in that regard, what we've also done is we forwarded the actual preservation order to the police in this matter.
So let me get you straight, Counsel. The only asset that is under preservation is the private jet.
It's the private jet, Your Worship. The bank accounts are not under preservation. Your Worship, I think I made the submission because, as Your Worship is well aware, normally when you do a preservation application, it's linked to preserving all the personal assets, bank accounts, etc. And I apologize to the court for stating that we clarified that immediately with the police. Your Worship, then we also list in paragraph 4 all the family members by name and surname. Your Worship, we then, and I'm not going to now go through everything, we then went further. We provided the investigating officer, Colonel Maritz, with the title deeds of Ms. Ntlokwani's properties, the one in Port Elizabeth as well as the one in Cape Town, and it's evident from it that she is joint owner of the said properties, Your Worship. That is, of course, a very simple fact that can be established by the police by doing a simple deed search. Your Worship, under 8 October, we provided them with the list of email exchanges between Mr. Victor Nkwashu, who is the applicant's attorney in another matter, and all of these deals with the flight arrangements, just again to prove to Your Worship that the police all along knew what the position is with the children. We know it, and there can be no suggestion or inferment that we try to mislead the court by suggesting that they stay here permanently. Your Worship, the next set of emails is the one where we actually deal with the deeds of London Ntlokwani, and we attach the preservation order. Your Worship will find the preservation order is indeed, it forms part of the documents that we attach, and that preservation order deals with all the relevant issues that's necessary in it. And then the very last one, Your Worship, on Wednesday, deals with is an acknowledgement by Colonel Maritz of the various documents that we sent. Your Worship, then we go over to yesterday. Yesterday what we did was Your Worship would recall that in this affidavit there's also mention made of the immediate family of the applicant 1 and applicant 2. What we did yesterday, we actually spoke to the immediate family. We took photographs of their passports as well as their visas and or the status that they have in this country, and we forwarded same to the investigating officer. Those documents are not going to hand up, Your Worship, for reasons of privacy. Safe to state, as an officer of the court, I informed the court that those documents were handed up. If Your Worship is so inclined to see it, we are prepared to make it available to the Honourable Court, but we ask that the content thereof not be distributed and be published by whoever has it. And we request very humbly that the state does the same. Your Worship, just bear with me. Now, Your Worship, then I'm going to very, very briefly deal with the issues of the law.